Hello and welcome to the Slow Ready Podcast, casual drive into the music and culture of Goose. I'm Mike, joined as always with my co-host Alex, and we're back to recap the end of Europe as we all start gearing up for summer tour and the highly anticipated release of Big Modern. But before we get into our main topic, let's, as always, take care of some housekeeping. Why don't you take us away there, Alex?
Hey, y'all. As always, you can follow us at Slow Pod and all the socials. We're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, we're there, unless you're Reddit, because we don't like Reddit anymore. But anyway, that's it for the socials. If you want to leave us a 5-star review or whatever, we'd really appreciate it. We never really asked for that. I figure I should shout that out. And if you want to email us any ideas for episodes or your thoughts on our episodes or just want to chat about anything, email us at slowreadypod@gmail.com. But before we get into our episode, which I'm so excited to get into, Mike, why don't you take it away with our first segment, Hot Tea?
Yeah, I guess we'll start with the small news first. Goose uploaded the acoustic, I guess not small news, but Goose uploaded the acoustic set from Gonzo, and they did it months faster than last year. So I think we're all super grateful to get it so early and so quick from Gonzo. And did you get a chance to relive the great memory that you had down there, Alex?
Oh, yeah. That was like priority number one as soon as they announced they were dropping that. I guess I didn't tell Sarah because she saw the alert come up on her phone. She's like, oh my God, we're not watching this. I just saw the Nugs alert. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's already 8 o'clock. And it was so great to see it pop up before September. And oh my gosh, I had like rushed on our socials to post the videos I had taken from there because it took like 4 months last time. I figured like I should
Yeah.
upload some stuff for people to chew on before the boards come out, but thankfully it's out much sooner.
Yeah, definitely. I got to check it out too. I knew it was going to be exactly as amazing as it was, and it was outstanding, as is every Goose acoustic set. And to get Michaela Davis on those songs as well is just absolutely insane.
She added so much,
So
but
jealous.
I wanted to ask you a question. If you were at
hmm
an acoustic show like that, would you count that towards your stats or no?
I personally would not.
Wow.
I
Okay.
think Goose full band is one format, and I think that or Rebelo and or acoustic is kind of its own animal.
Interesting. Okay. It's like very strange because it is not quite a Rebelo, but it is still unique.
Sure. Yeah. If Rick doesn't have the Empress or Dracula in his hands, then I'm not counting those songs for my stats personally. Everyone has a diverse set of opinions on this. I've, coming from the Dave world, I've heard all kinds of different thoughts on like whether you count Dave and Tim stats with the DMB stats. I think it's vastly different. They're worlds apart musically. And I mean, how are you going to lump things in like that don't have like any Rick solos, like to the level that I've come to expect from a Goose show? I don't know. It's just a different thing. And I feel like if you're going to a Goose Stick, you're going in with a different set of expectations. And I think you're going to enjoy the songs more than you typically would like at a Goose show. Not that the songs aren't always enjoyable, of course.
Listen, I got a lot of thoughts on this Dave Matthews comparison because Dave and Tim is vastly superior to Dave Matthews Band at this point. Um, Book that. But anyway, that's a totally different animal. Those stats are better, honestly. Like I'm more
Yeah.
happy to have those stats. But yeah, I don't know what to do about it. I really want to count it towards my stats because I got some really rare songs, but also I
Yes.
understand the appeal of like, or not the appeal, but like the argument that it is kind of its own animal. And of course, you're going to get some more unique songs. Anyway, just an interesting debate here.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, I think you'll get most of them like from going to other Goose shows because it's not like we're gonna stop being insane about how many shows we're going to anytime soon. So I think you'll still get everything again.
Yeah, well, speaking of, you want to take it to the next set of news?
Yeah, now this is truly huge news. So we finally have fall tour dates, and do you want to read those off, man? Because pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so we got the fall tour dropped in the middle of the Europe tour, as Goose does sometimes. Very odd timing. But um, the tour opens up in November in Kansas City at the Midland Theater on the 3rd and 4th of November. Then we move back to the Miller High Life Theater in Milwaukee on November 6th, 7th, and 8th, the only 3-night stand of this run. and the only 3-night stand of the year besides Gonzo, which is just wild to
Yeah.
say. And then we go to Nashville for the next run at a new venue, The Truth, on November 10th and 11th, and then go to Mohegan Sun hometown show on the 13th and 14th of November. Then move to Portland, Maine. First return since 2024 for the 15th at the Cross Insurance Arena. Then back to Charlottesville at John Paul Jones Arena, big venue. On the 18th of November. Don't break any feet or ankles or whatever there, please. And then to Pittsburgh for 2-night stand at the Citizens Live at the Wiley on the 19th and 20th of November. And then we close out the tour in Rochester at the Blue Cross Arena on the 21st of November. So, pretty cool run of shows here. Thought we'd get more Midwest love, but I think it's pretty cool. And you can hear my dogs barking and going crazy to the doorbell. Sorry, folks. That's real life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't think a lot of people had them going out in November like this. It's kind of unique, this date range that they're going here. And also to your point, Peter had mentioned previously that they were going to definitely hit the Midwest, and there's definitely some Midwest here, but kind of surprised when you look at 2026 as a whole, you know, not as many Midwest shows as there has been in years past. So that's noteworthy. But at the same time, I do kind of understand Goose has definitely seemingly been a lot more oriented, at least the last 2 years, into kind of lining up shows in bulk and then getting like significant chunks of change off as well. So it's like it seems like they've been consolidating their time, and like when they're on tour heavy. And then when they're on their time off, they've got a lot of time off so that they can kind of fulfill everything they're doing creatively, because it seems like for the band right now this is a really great time of writing where they're just constantly churning out song after song. And so, I do kind of understand the thought process here.
I definitely understand the thought process. I just, man, those long stretches are brutal as a fan. But
Yeah.
if it means we're getting more new songs and more creativity thrown in, like, and that is what refills their cup, then who am I to say my preference? We're just still getting goose shows at the end of the day. Um, there's been a lot of speculation about like, oh, no Chicago, no Philadelphia, those are big stops. I mean, the big rumors for Goose Miss that people have been throwing out are Chicago and Atlantic City, which is close enough to Philly for those who are not familiar with the geography. Um, and we'll see what happens. There's also, I mean, I don't know anything. Neither nobody does, but people have been talking about what if they do a New Year's Eve run, and they've done Chicago in the past. That could be something. Who knows? So to all who are losing hope because their big city looks like it's been skipped, it's not going to be skipped forever by any means. Hopefully we'll get something close by, whether it's the end of this year or early next year. Who knows? And also, Milwaukee's like an hour from Chicago, so all the Chicago people complaining, like, you're gonna drive up to Milwaukee.
Yeah. No, I mean, 100%. I definitely think it's amazing. Other high level thoughts about this. I think it's amazing that they're going back to Miller High Life for 3 nights. Obviously, we were both at that last run there, and they really made themselves at home in that venue. And it's one of the best places I've ever seen a concert at. So stoked if there is only one 3 night regular Goose run that it's back at that theater. Really excited that we'll both be in attendance again. I cannot wait to see the jam of 2026 performed again in Miller High Life. So, um, absolutely stoked about that. But also, I thought it was super noteworthy that they're playing John Paul Jones. I mean, that's a humongous arena.
Mhm.
Uh, we got to see them in Charlottesville last time they were in Seville, and it was an absolutely epic show. So, really excited that they're going back.
Yeah, Charlottesville's such a cool town. I wish I could make that show. Midweek is kinda tough. But yeah, we'll both be in Milwaukee, and I'll be at Mohegan Sun, and I can't wait. It's gonna be an awesome tour.
Yeah. I always get excited for these short runs because you know that it's just going to come with a lot of goose magic. So I'm like already like plotting in my head, like, can I add Pittsburgh? Can I add anything else? So it's just like it's really tempting. But with Goosemas going to be so close around the corner, we'll see what we can work out.
Yeah, and it's almost all multi-night runs. Like, that's just so exciting. Only 3
Yeah.
one-night stands, like, let's go.
Yeah, and some of these new venues like Citizens Live at the Wiley and the Truth, those both look like really cool places as well to catch a show. So very, very
Mm.
excited for this run.
Go to Nashville if you can. I know it's tough for you midweek, but that venue looks so sick.
Ironically, I think my girlfriend might be going to those shows without me. So
Oh, no.
this is the way the cookie crumbles. So but yeah, it's gonna be great. We already have like 15 goose shows on the books this year, so it's gonna be fine.
Nice. All right. So that's the news and notes, right? Anything else?
No, let's get into the flow down. We've got a few European shows here to wrap things up and put a bow on this. So let's start off May 30th at, I'm probably going to really butcher this, but Burger House Stolwerk in Cologne, Germany. I don't know. I have no German background, so we'll go with that. You want to read off the set list, Alex?
You said it better than I would have, so props. Yeah, I'll read this off. We start off set one with Salt, then get Mr. Action, Draconian Meter Maid, Arcadia, and then close the set with Iguana Song and to take on me back into Iguana Song for the sandwich. And then set two opens with Pancakes into Creatures, back into Pancakes, and then close with a Bob Don into Tumble.
Awesome. And of course, no encore, same as before. So I guess we can just take this beat by beat and kind of move through the quick stuff quickly. But
Yeah.
Salt Mr. Action. Thought it was a really good 1-2 punch, a lot of energy to start this show off.
Yeah, and I think this is the best that the new bridge on Salt has sounded so far. I mean, I've made it known I still miss the old Salt in my hair sing along part, but this is the best it sounded, and I'm excited to see how it sounds in the studio cut and where it goes from here.
Yeah, I thought the tension builds in Salt were like particularly aggressive, even for that song and doing what it normally does. And I thought the outro was just rollicking with a lot of energy. And Mr. Action kept that going. But
Hmm.
Draconian, I know, is I think what we both want to talk about. So give me your thoughts on Draconian, which has got to be like, I don't know, top five standouts from Europe overall, I feel like.
Yeah, this is definitely my highlight of the show overall. And early on, it seemed like it was going to be just another tremendous Bliss Draconian like we've gotten because it just started off in that space. You know, Bob Ross painting a beautiful, lovely picture for us. And then the Cotter shuffle starts going, and Rick moves over to this fuzzier tone, and Peter switches over to that more marimba patch sound, and the ride just starts to begin from there. And with that change in tone, the band quickly builds their energy, all led by Cotter, who just starts to get heavier and heavier with his drumming, and it's almost like a pot of water on the stove. Like the energy, like keeps kind of like adding to the rolling boil, and eventually gets hits that boiling point and kind of rolls over into this darker cool down space for a little bit. It almost sounds like it would be tremendous coming or a tremendous jam out of something like Fish in the Sea or something like that. But it's Draconian, dude, which is really cool. A different vibe for that. And Rick winds up latching onto this amazing ascending earworm of a progression over this kind of bed of darkness that everyone else is laying down. And it's almost like akin to a sliver of light poking into a dark room that's just kind of growing and growing and lighting up the room because it's this nice push and pull where it's this like really conquering triumphant sound from Rick over this bed of darkness that the rest of the band eventually just kind of succumbs to. And they all build together off of that after a few minutes of that tension back and forth. And it's one of those where you're listening to it and you can't help but grin through all that triumphant sound by the end. And every time I listen back, I just like smile bigger and bigger. It's just such a fun jam.
Yeah, I mean, it moves into the muddy territory way faster than I was expecting. It kind of caught me off guard at first. But I love Trevor early on, who was just so aggressively melodic, almost like dancing around with his lines. And they build it out into this like it's moody, but it's also funky. And then it's right after they downshift and kind of go into that like let's let it breathe space that it starts to go like to your point, like more overtly ominous space. And I love that in as they start to kind of go into that, Peter and Rick engage in almost like a call and response of ideas, and as they're doing that, Trevor's just like punctuating every single call and response.
Hmm.
And the end of this jam is just so unique. It sounds almost like a Latin rock opera. like in the conclusion. I don't know how else to put it, but I'm going to listen to that end section like endlessly throughout the rest of this year. It's just totally different than any jam they've done so far.
It's one of the coolest sections, and it's like 8 minutes long, and they just continue to ride and ride off of that, and, like, it starts off in that, like, layer of haze, and then eventually it's like the whole band just, like, hops on, like, "We're gonna
Yeah.
fucking ride this thing out." It's soaring by the end of it.
Yeah, and it felt like this is what they could get to me if they ever, like, took a Mosque Nada 20 minutes.
Oh my
Like,
god, yeah.
that end part could be there. So yeah, it was just super unique, super high up on my playlist already. This Draconian freaking rules.
I haven't even begun to process some of these Europe jams because there's so much tremendous music going on, I haven't even thought about that
Yeah,
yet. Oh my god.
strap in because it keeps going. This Arcadia here is also really, really solid and definitely, like, one of the top highlights from the show, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I really like this Arcadia too. I mean, Trevor is absolutely tremendous on this as well, especially early on. He tends to stick out more to my ear. They're riding that funk wave out, and Trevor's just like, I'm gonna be doing my own thing over here, just killing it while we ride out the normal funk wave and just add way more flavor to this. And then the jam starts to take a turn into a more bright, lighter, uplifting space where Trevor continues to be an absolute superstar on the Bliss build, but it's just not as front and center because everyone's kind of chiming in at this point. Peter's work on the keys really shines here, adding to that kind of dreamy feel around Rick's beautiful guitar tone. I love that tone. Whatever that effect is, I want to know what it is, Rick. So good. And then once the energy of the jam kind of builds to a certain point, the band latches on to this pattern of a really high energy measure, then bring things down to a calmer measure, and then back and forth seesaw into that dynamic that we talk about whenever it happens, but it's still pretty rare. And when they do hit it, it's so cool. And they wind up hitting that last high energy measure, and it's just a flawless segue into the Arcadia outro, which is just so cool. And that's the kind of stuff you get when you get a mid set Arcadia. So really, really fun ride.
Definitely, yeah, you said that perfectly. I don't have too much to add. I mean, to your point though, I do like the very Radiohead-esque playing from Rick with the feathery, almost finger pick sound of arpeggios. That part is just absolutely just, I mean, absolutely outstanding. But in a lot of ways, that part kind of reminds me of like a throwback to older Arcadias because they used to hit these blissy ones pretty often, but then in the second phase of it, they do that, to your point, the two chord progression thing where they hammer hard on the second chord to emphasize, and it makes it feel almost like they're throwing melody against a wall or something. It's very fun before they hit the reentry back into Arcadio's outro, which they hit it very, very smoothly, and it's a patient, nice close on this one. So one of the better Arcadias from recent memory for me, for sure.
Yeah, and to your point, that it is really, really patient in the sense that like the jam ends and then it's like 5 minutes and change of outro
Yeah,
build. And the outro is always great. So like, a long outro like
yeah,
that's really cool and it's super high energy.
yeah. Medal winning outro on this one for sure. And then we get a really special sandwich here to close with Iguana into Take on Me back into Iguana, which I don't know how they thought of that one, but really, really good stuff here to close set one.
Really, really good stuff. Really smooth segue and continuing in 2026. Kind of just when we thought it couldn't get better than the segues we saw in 2025. For all the complaints people had about the shows in 2025, the segue game was strong and it's even better now in this year. And yeah, first take on me since October 26th of 2024. And I don't study the encyclopedia of take on me's that Goose has played, but this is the best sounding version I can remember of it, particularly because of Rick singing. Oh my God, angelic perfection. And
Yep.
don't want to short sell Peter's background vocals, adding a little take on me's in the back. He sounded good too. So, really nice vocal performances all around and a nice treat between another fan favorite and Iguana song.
Yeah, I think we're gonna probably end up being redundant before this year is over because anything that they bring back that's been a while, we're gonna be like, well, it's at least the best version vocally because there's just so many gains in that front that it's like if it's their first time playing it since 2024, just count on it being the best version. So I totally agree. It sounded absolutely incredible. And while I haven't gone through the entire back catalog of Take On Me's, probably don't even have access to all of the previous Take On Me's, this one is the best. I agree. And very cool to see what they're doing with Iguana Song. Like we still haven't hit that really long jam on it yet, but they're showing a lot of freedom with how they like manipulate it, jam it, move it around and things like that. That it's only a matter of time. And I love how free that song is right now as far as songs in the catalog. It's the freest it's been.
Yeah, and the sandwich is a very encouraging step towards something big breaking off of an Iguana song. You know, if you treat the
Yeah,
Take On Me like a jam, like, that means they're thinking about what they're gonna do with Iguana.
totally. Yeah, very well said. Anything else on set one here before we get into set two?
No, I just, want to encourage Rick to invite me up on stage to sing "Take on Me" sometime because that's my karaoke song, and I'll sing it really poorly so you look good.
We can do a compare and contrast
Please
episode on
don't.
that.
Please don't invite me. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Well, as an entertaining as that would be, this pancakes was really good as well. It's always a great set to opener. I feel like as far as cakes go, this was kind of a typical cakes jam early on. It got pretty aggressive early.
Mhm.
Lots of really good peaking in a blender, swirling sounding sections, and really cool percussive element to Pete's playing that combined with Cotter's like million hits per second approach adds this kind of like dizzying, scaling mountains quality to the jam.
Yeah, this is one that hit the ground running. It was a short pancakes. Well, it's as it seemed like a short pancakes before we knew it was going to be a sandwich, but it kind of took that spring tour mold of taking one concept of a jam and kind of building on one section of a jam and building on it until you're just in a totally different place by the end. But yeah, fever pitch is the word that comes to mind by the end of it. And it's just a flurry of Rick, Trevor, and Peter all around, Cotter's dizzying drumming.
Yep. And then we get a flawless, and I do mean flawless transition into creatures. Do you have any notes on this one?
Yeah, that transition was interesting because it was like a slow roll into creatures, and it featured various creatures meowing and chittering, courtesy of Peter, which was kind of funny. I like laughed out loud when I first listened back on Nugs. Didn't notice that on Mixler. And the creatures was just the Goon's vehicle for the night. It had a lot of those new percussive tones we had talked about in our last episode that Peter was doing with the drum track. The alarm clock sound thing was back, and this one kind of felt like it was going to go back into Blade nightclub territory, and it had a lot of those tones, but it never quite hit that style of intensity. It instead kind of lingered on a lighter section in that zone, which was kind of a nicer vibe to it, but not quite the intensity of like I'm going to be cutting vampire heads off tonight. And then lingered there, and then another swift and solid transition back into the cakes from the Goon's Peak. So really, really solid stuff all around on this sandwich.
Yeah, and I just was like a really big fan of the space in the middle of the creatures jam where they just let it down and let it die down and breathe.
Hmm.
You don't always get that in a Goons jam, and they really did like just give themselves time to appreciate the space. And then when they built up the back half of the Goonsy jam, they give you that extra crunchy guitar and the heavy loops and synths and breakneck pace, and it just felt like a very well earned escalation. And I like that when you get that in the Goons jam.
Yeah, yeah, and the Goons is in a really cool space, starting really since Gonzo. It's something about International Goose and Goons apparently because they started doing some really cool, different twists on it, which is cool. Um,
Yeah,
but that's kind of it for the Goons on this show. We'll get into more of that later. How about this Bob Don?
yeah. Yeah, Bob Don was short but sweet. I mean, we always talk about how much we love it in these like last couple slots of set two. So, very happy to see it here, but nothing crazy by any means, I would say.
Yeah, it's the first one without the with jam
Mhm.
section on it since September 15th, 2024. Even longer break since Take on Me. Ha. You got the slightest hint of the width, but that was really just the
Yeah.
transition into Tumble, and you didn't really get the big guitar outro, but that hurts my heart a little bit, but Bob Don's still Bob Don and one of the great, like, starts off cool down and it's a banger by the end tunes we got.
Yeah, this was another really good transition into Tumble. One of my favorite closers. It's fun and funky, very 80s sounding, super dense echoing guitars in the middle, and then the tightest and sickest rolling breakneck pattern from Cotter. I mean, this thing is just so fast and so dense, and that is just the name of the game with Cotter lately. Is his 100 mile an hour fastball is better than your 100 mile an hour fastball? It's just like what I think of.
Who's that pitcher on, like, the Brewers or something that's pitching, like, 50 pitches a game at 103 miles an hour? That's Cotter.
Zarowski, yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Cotter on this tour. Yeah, I was really my only notes is Cotter's going absolutely bananas. This jam was shot out of a cannon a lot like Pancakes, so great way to close out a set.
Yeah, the only other thing is I would like to see this formula take place in a longer jam at some point, just because it made a lot of the previous barn burners they've done with Cotter appear tame in comparison.
Yeah,
So I would love to see like if this got like the what I think it was the Western Sun from Wilmington last year that was a barn burner. It had a decent length on it, and so I would love to see what this did if it had a little bit more time. But electric closer,
it's like, again, something about International Goose. Cotter's on, like, another level of energy since the Mexico
yeah,
shows, I feel like. Like, he's always
yeah.
been that guy, but now it's like he's literally gonna break every drum head on his kit every night.
Yeah, we keep saying it, but it seems like ever more possible every day now. So,
Yep.
anything else before we move on to Paris?
Now let's get into Paris.
All right. Well, I guess I'll read this one off since you read the last one. So, we're starting off with Hot Love and the Lazy Poet, going into Dustin Hoffman, Your Ocean in the new arrangement, Royal, Amongster, then Rosewood Heart to close it out. And then set two, we get a Thatch, Good to Be, Dripfield, White Lights, and then Sinnerman. So definitely, I think, my favorite show of the tour. So let's get into it, man. Hot Love, starting us off.
Hot Love, jam vehicle, here to stay. I mean, a short jam on this one, but great way to start a
Yeah.
show already when it didn't have a jam, and now it's even better.
Yes. Yeah, it's not super long, but it does get a cool little jam on it. Actually, pretty interesting for its length. Essentially, just building to one peak, like you just mentioned. Spring Tour was a lot of that, but I love the desperate sound of Rick and Peters playing on this one. There's just a lot of passion in it, and I thought it was a really, really good start to the show because of that specifically.
I mean, I'll be honest, I only listened to it once. I should probably listen to it again because it got overshadowed by another surprise jam just a few songs later, and I listened to that a couple more times. But yeah, always
Yeah,
love to see a song that hasn't gotten jammed get that love and hot love, baby. Let's go.
yeah. And then a really solid early Dustin. Did you have any notes on this one?
This was another really strong version for the strong year that Dustin's having, and this one kind of stays more true to the slow build one idea Hoff formula. We've seen some lately, but it has some little twist of its own. Like particularly the one thing that really kind of piqued my ear was the collab party Peter decides to have in the middle of this thing, and it's just kind of doing the Dustin Hoffman formula, and that's a great formula.
Yeah, it's just the same jam they've been doing with it constantly lately. But there were two cool wrinkles for me. One, Rick was using that super goonsy type guitar tone, which gives it a different flavor right from there. And then Peter kind of builds upon that with a very cool contrasting progression on keys. And I thought those two differences alone bring the jam to at least a different resting place than the previous Dustins have ended up. So I thought that was nice to hear, and it did have a really good peak at the end. So as far as doing the singular thing, it did it really well.
Yeah, it's a lot like Big Modern was in 2025, where it was doing a lot of the same style with different wrinkles. That's a great term for it.
Yeah.
Hoffman's kind of having a year like that, and that's not a bad thing because Hoffman rules, and the jam's always fun and great energy to it.
Yeah, definitely. And then we get the new arrangement of Your Ocean pops back up for the second time, first since Miami. I'm still loving the density of this version. Any thoughts? Or are you still kind of team agnostic?
I have a confession to make to you, Mike, and as much as it pains me to say this, you were right. and I like this version and I like this song, and let's just move on.
Oh, goodness. I was not expecting that at all. We can move right on, but that's good to hear.
No, no, you were right. Give it to me. Let the haters flow in. We are a new version of your ocean podcast here. I really like this one, and I was really vibing with it. I guess it takes me 3 or 4 listens before something clicks for me sometimes, and that was this new version of your ocean. It slaps.
Yeah, I kind of liken it to like the original version of Your Ocean was a very good song that you would hear from like any sort of like indie rock band. And then this new version conjures, early phase Radiohead. And so to me, it's just like, how can you not like that more than just what was a pretty straightforward song? I think they're both beautiful because the textures of the chords just lend themselves to it. But it sounds like a beautiful tapestry of music now, whereas before to me it was just like it's a good song. It's a very good song.
Yeah, yeah. You and I have talked ad nauseum about how we prefer the quicker paced tunes to like the slower songs. It's just
Sure.
harder to get into that for us for some reason. And your ocean, I never didn't like it, but it's just kind of one of those songs. It's like, cool, I'd love to hear it, but
Yeah.
it's not a song I like go and search up on Nugs by any means. But now I might. I
Yeah.
like this one.
Yeah, I'm chasing this version of it. I've heard the original one before, but now I really, really gotta get this one in my life. So hoping that comes back up. And then Royal brings the fun energy back up. And I think Amongster is quickly rising up my favorite cover rankings. Any notes on these two?
Hey, Royal got a jam, dude. That's what I was talking about before. 12-minute long Royal. And there's like not a lot of substance to this jam, if I'm being honest. It's just a blues rock vibe all the way.
Yeah.
But that's just still such a nice surprise. And, in Europe, of all places where you're playing the smallest venues you're going to play all year, you're just dropping these huge bombs for those crowds. Uh, what a treat.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't have any like specific notes on it because to your point, it was pretty straightforward rock and roll, but definitely happy to see that. And I think that we're in a really good place with them feeling free and willing to jam out anything at this point. It seems like most everything's on the table.
Everything but lead up, apparently, which we've been like beckoning for.
One day it's going to get that classic drive jam, and I'm going to be thrilled.
It's going to get a 38-minute version in
Yeah.
Milwaukee. They played it there last
Oh
year. Never
man.
mind.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I don't think so, but we'll see.
and then Amongster, it's awesome. It's a great cover. I went and listened to the original version of it. Can't stand it. Love the Goose version though.
Yeah. The Goose version, the Areblo version, just both phenomenal. I love what they do with this song, and it is not the first example of a song that I agree with you. I do not like the original at all, and then Rick works his magic with it, and all of a sudden it's like just like the National cover. It's like, well, I'm here for Goose doing it. It's completely different ball game with them.
Yeah. I mean, the National we've talked about before. It's one of those bands I like. I wish I liked because I respect everyone I know who likes them, but I've been to like
Yeah,
5 of their concerts and I hate it. But I love when Goose does it.
yeah, yeah. Goose Blood Buzz completely different, but I mean, I'm wearing the shirt. So
Yeah.
second
Cool.
Rosewood though of 2026. Only the second one. This song should get played so much more than it gets played, but any thoughts on this?
I will say it's criminal that it's only been played twice because it's
Criminal.
top 5 Goose song. Uh,
Yeah.
this one was a driving rocker right from the jump. Again, they were just hitting the ground running in Europe. And right from the jump, it's a driving rocker. Like I said, Rick, Trevor, and Peter playing with this staccato kind of feel early on, taking jabs with this quick back and forth, like they were fencing with their music. Speaking of Paris. And then the jam opens up a little bit, eventually moving into a short rolling rock section for a quick mini peak before really slowing things down and going into this moody space that the band lingers in for a minute or two. And it's a really cool sound that I hope that they explore more when they're less crunched for time. Like they seem to find these places when they're at the set closers or at the end of an
Yeah.
encore or something sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I want to be here for 5 minutes, not one. But yeah, I hope they get back to this sound somehow and they roll out of it to get into a very classic rock vibe, rocking outro. Don't linger in that too long either, but it was a really, really cool space the last 4 or 5 minutes of it that I wish they could have had 10 minutes on, but the clock was not in their favor, unfortunately, and it's still worth a listen back.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was kind of pretty standard funky start at first, but it's right around the 10-minute mark that Peter finds this really cool repeating pattern, and him and Rick engage in more call and response type of playing, which I think seeing a lot more of that on Europe tour, which I'm really into. And when they brought it down to a simmer and bring it back up, they just hit this furious rock finish with blaring organ and just crushing drums again from Cotter. It adds just a feeling of chaos to the set closer here, and I think that worked really well.
Yeah, very, very punchy, very like jabby all the way through, and the way
Yes.
that they explore dynamics with that is really, really interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And then we get a Thatch set 2 opener. It's like this and Madhavan for favorite set 2 opener. So I'm in love with this. What did you think?
This is one of those sets too where you look at the times of all the songs and it's deceiving because like you might not be impressed with the run times just based off of past great versions, but really everything in this second set ruled. Um,
Yeah.
Thatch, no exception. Starts off kind of funky like it always does, but Peter was rocking with the organ early versus the synth he normally does. And another little wrinkle that perked my ear up in 2026, Peter is just killing it this year, switching things up and changing a new spin on the normal sound. And then once Peter moves back over the synth, the Thatch kind of takes a quick detour into a sweeping Bliss section that kind of gives this relatively compact Thatch a really interesting dimension. We last time we saw Bliss even close to this flavor on a Thatch, I think was MSG. So it's not something that we always get to with Thatch, and a cool little detour. More interesting than you would think with the short runtime. You'd normally think it's just going to ride funk, and then that's call it a day. You get two sections instead of just one.
Yeah, I think both sections to this jam are interesting, and what to your point, way more than the timestamp is going to indicate. Because I think they do the sparse and funky thing for a bit early, where there's nothing really that surprising about it. It's definitely a patient approach, but you get a nice little peak on that, and it's an upbeat close to the first section with some really cool noodling from Rick to my ear, anyways. But when they let it breathe and open up into more of the, I don't know, like psychedelic and atmospheric airy runs, it kind of sounds like everybody's just playing up to the heavens. It just sounds like everyone's sounds are rising up. Just has an amazing peak to close it down. And so, for the time, I thought they really developed this one really well.
Yeah, and that's kind of a theme of this entire set. Honestly, I think the song that got the
Yeah.
most run was Dripfield, if I'm remembering right. But everything was relatively compact and jam packed with cool ideas.
Yeah. Speaking of good to be keeps going strong in 2026. No bad versions. This one I thought stayed close to the song proper for a while, which some of them have tended to do, but it spends its whole entire second half in just an extremely airy and ethereal space, which was really unique for this song in its early career here. Lots of droning, loopy sounds going on. And while it's very airy, it's also very dense. And I love the heavy synths that Peter eventually brings in. It becomes very psychedelic and reminiscent of what they do with butterflies sometimes with all the electronic effects, but it's like a gentler and more blissy version of those textures. And then we get some really cool vocal soloing from Rick, which seems to be like a new development that's here to stay. And it follows a lot of what Pete's doing on keys. Very cool stuff going on here that I would like to see more of because it ends before I feel like they explored all the possibilities they were touching on.
Yeah, when I listened back to the show, I felt that way the first listen for sure. When I went back and listened, it really feels like this was like a prelude to Dripfield with that like really thick techno-y synth, that beep boop bop boop thing that Peter was doing over top of like the gorgeous Bliss was such a cool dynamic. And yeah, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, the end of this jam is especially kind of has that drip field style vibe in it, the floaty section that sometimes drip kind of gets to that sound. And it almost served as like a cool prelude to it. But really, really interesting stuff. And yeah, the Rick vocal flare thing, it's unreal. He sounds so good doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and what Peter's able to do as far as like reading his mind so that they both stay in sync while they're accentuating what the other is doing is just very neat to watch in real time, especially now that I maybe should have led with this earlier in the episode, but all of these shows that we're recapping are available for video and soundboards on Nugs. So if you get a chance to go back and watch some of these unique things that we're calling out here, it's very, very worth your while because they're doing some incredible stuff in real time where they're reading and reacting off of each other as well as I've ever seen them do.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's get into it with Dripfield because this is no exception to that, right? What you think about this drip, man?
Very cool.
It was so cool.
Very cool version. Yeah, I think it hits 20 minutes almost exactly. Takes a different off ramp from the industrial sound almost immediately, thanks to some really cool riffing from Rick that Peter picks up on and mirrors with his keys. And once that foundation is set, they find a 3 chord progression that works for everyone, and they build this like awesome pure rock section. And I just have to say, I love when they find progressions like this in a jam and just build it out pretty quickly. Peter's adding like a little bit marimba, some keys bass motifs on top of the progression, while Rick keeps a fairly consistent up tempo riff going on over the top, and it builds to a very satisfying peak. But this is something that I feel like they do as well, if not better, than any band out there, where it doesn't really matter who finds the progression, but whoever initiates it, once they find something that they all just immediately latch onto, they're so good at building the space out around that.
That's really well said, and I totally agree. When they're in that Zen mode, mind meld mode all together, it's unbeatable in this scene. It's very eggy kind of vibes when they're all building together like that, but they do it at a whole nother level, in my opinion, when they're really clicking. And
Yep.
that interesting part of the jam you're describing early on, that kind of like churning rhythm section with Rick and Peter poking and prodding at it, it's very similar to the vibe of the end of the Redbird jam from MSG last year, and this felt like the jam that we deserved at MSG from that sound that got cut short for "Don't Leave Me This Way."
Yep.
um, but it was so cool, and it's like a shape shifting kind of style, and it's like a amorphous vibe to it. And, when they're in lockstep, it's a cool vibe, but Peter breaks off with some cool fat key shots that really hold the rhythm together so that Cotter, Trevor, and Rick can up the ante. And they just like ride this like swirling, forming shape of energy all the way to the end. And when it hits fever pitch, they don't overstay their welcome, go right into like the highest energy outro drip field you can find anywhere. And of course, got a well deserved crowd pop for that. But just an unreal amount of music packed into this 20 minutes. This is definitely going to be high up on my Europe highlights, at least. I don't know about playlist stuff yet. I can't even think about that. But I love this trip.
Playlist is getting very crowded, but I do think this is probably the best drip field of the year. So it's early on still, and there's a lot of more great drip fields to come. But for at least right now, this is outstanding stuff, and it's really fun to see them take a significant detour from what we're used to.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, speaking of great segue work here by us, uh, White Lights, dude. Detour from the norm. First time played since Louisville of the 2025 fall tour. And this was an early serving of Goons, kind of as the appetizer to the Centerman that was coming, but really enjoyed it. What'd you think?
I mean, happy to see this pop up whenever it does. And I thought it was very apropos in the City of Light to play White Lights. And this was a very cool Goonsy jam on this. And it segued beautiful and perfectly into the closer of Cinderman.
Yeah, and this was another spin on the Goons. I thought it didn't have any of like the over the top high energy peaks and drops. It was kind of like if you went to go see like a DJ do a house set and at a chill spot, and you're just kind of like chilling in that vibe for a while and letting it linger because it's such a good vibe. And it's nice and low key, and then you bust things open with Centerman to close out the show, which is just relentless dark electronica and one of the biggest peaks of the night. It's up there with the Dripfield peak. I think the Dripfield peak is more dynamic, but this is like energy in your face, like melts your brain stuff.
Yeah. There's a bit more rock flavor in this Cinderman than they typically have been lately. They've been like super industrial electronic vampire killer mode, but this one I felt like leaned a little bit more rock at least. And to your point, I think the Dripfield peak hits just a little bit harder just because of how well earned it is because of the jam it's coming out of. So there's that effect as well, but there's also something to be said for just there's zero breaks from the White Lights jam to the end of the show.
Yep. Yep. So, everyone's gotta get their goons. Throwing it out like
Yeah.
Oprah throws out gifts, "You get a goons, and
Yeah.
you get a goons."
Goons was heavy in Europe, which is appropriate because Europe is very into electronic music, probably even more so than America. So um, it works really well, and they did it really well. I think even a step above what they had done on Spring Tour.
Oh, yeah. Agree.
Anything else before we close out here with Berlin?
Well, we got one more show after Berlin, but we don't have much to say about it. But let's get into Berlin. Last headlining gig, at
For
least.
last headline gig, yeah, we'll go with that. Why don't you read off the last actual Goose show?
Set 1 opens it with Jive 2 into Jive Lee. Then get California Magic into I'm Writing a Novel. Silver Rising lead up Wisteria Lane into Shamalama Ding Dong to close out the set. And then set 2 is a 3-song set, Unreal. Get a Big Modern into So Ready and Madhuvan to close out the show.
Unreal.
It's a really
So
cool
let's start
set.
off. I mean, yeah, I can't say enough good things about the set listing. You get all your songs in set one. You get three heavy hitters, or at least So Ready has become a heavy hitter lately in the second set. So yeah, let's start off with this Jive 2 Jive Lee. I mean, I don't know that a show can start off better than that.
Just mind meld, man. That's my first line is one of the premier ways to open a show. And then getting it right
Yeah.
into a Jive Lee is extra spicy, man. It's so good. The back
Yeah.
and forth from Rick and Peter early on in the Lee, especially with because Peter's on the clav and Rick's using like this fuzzy digital effect that almost sounds like clav himself, creates a really cool dynamic of similar yet distinct sounds that they're navigating around each other with. And what they have to navigate around is Cotter's relentless drumming yet again. But it's like controlled chaos is what I described it last time, I think. It's just like unreal, relentless madness that somehow is holding steady. And after a few minutes of this dance around each other that Rick and Peter are doing, Peter switches over to the keys and the organ, and Rick and Cotter take over the reins of this jam, kind of taking an already high energy start of the Lee and then setting that on fire and then throwing it into a 500 million gallon tank of jet fuel. And this thing just explodes. And there's points during this where like Cotter is playing so hard, he's literally taking lead. Like he's louder than anyone else in the band. And it sounds like Rick actually playing lead is playing accompaniment to him. And he's just such a tremendous force on it, man. And
Yeah.
it makes me think, since I read all the shitty comments people leave on our socials, because, I manage those pages and it's the worst part of the job. Um, we often see like criticisms of like, oh, like Rick's the only talent in the band. He's the big talent. Everyone else is just support. Everyone else, whatever. And this is one of those jams where you listen and you're like, got to give Cotter some respect, dude. He is so good and he deserves all the praise he gets because he's just unreal.
Yeah. Whoever has that take, what a stupid take that is. But anyways, uh I I don't know have much else to say. I mean, this thing fires off like a rocket on a racetrack. Everyone is just playing so damn fast. And I just want to shout out, I'm wearing the shirt. I'm really biased. Trevor's playing on this is just absolutely exquisite. It's some of my favorite Trevor playing ever. And him and Cotter just create this blistering pocket. It's maybe like one of the craziest goose pockets I've ever heard as far as the rhythm section goes. And Rick opts for that almost talk box tone again early on. It just makes the jam turn into a swampy beast. I found myself going like in the middle of the second track. Let's fucking go. When Cotter moves more to the shuffling feel, is that's when things really open up. And then you get Peter finding the cool rapid and repeating marimba with the heavy synth tones. They found this like awesomely powerful and intense and desperate sounding progression that peaks just out of this world. So, I mean, rocket ship of a start here.
It's insane. Like some of the highest energy of Europe, and we've talked about how great the energy's been all around. Jive
Yeah.
Lee is just special. Like I know
Yeah.
we've talked about like the best of compact jams, and Lee has the perk of just getting right into jam, but
Yep.
it just always hits the ground running. And I feel like I can't think of a time where it's like they're searching. They just seem to find something right from the jump every time.
Very true, and yet even among that, I think this is a really standout version of it, like,
Mhm.
even compared to how great it always is, I feel like this one is really, really special right away.
Yeah, it's tremendous, and the only complaint I might have is, like, I want this to be half of the set list because it's just so good.
Yeah, yeah. I'm right there with you, but we get a good run of songs here. I don't have a ton of notes on them other than they are really good songs, but this run of California Magic, I'm writing a novel, Silver Rising, and Lead Up, anything that you had on this middle run?
No, I actually didn't have any notes on any of them, just like you said, good tunes and, um, you know, you get a lot of different dynamics in sound in this run. It's particularly like the I'm writing a novel like shuffle, and then you get the Silver Rising slow, and then rapid build into the solo, and then lead up's just a rocker all the way through. That really is leading up to this outro that was fun but divisive.
Yeah, well, the one thing I will say about those 4, I guess I did have one quick thing to say is I like matching the tonal qualities of California Magic, and I'm writing a novel, and then the moodiness of Silver Rising and Lead Up. I feel like those kind of are good pairings, and it was a pretty good transition between the dichotomy of sounds that those 4 songs offer.
Hmm.
But let's get into this Wisteria. I have quite a few notes on it.
Yeah, this one again hits the ground running. Theme of the show. Probably gonna have people
Yeah.
turning off the podcast because we said it like every song. It feels like, but it's got a darker feel right from the jump, almost like a continuation of the tone earlier from that draconian meter maid from Cologne we talked about. Um,
Yep.
this really heavy layer of ominous keys and bass shots from Trev over an almost tribal sounding rolling toms lick from Cotter and some really moody accoutrements. I put that down from Rick. I wrote that down in real time. I was like, I got to use the word accoutrements. Um, and that hazy bed of darkness kind of vanishes midway through the jam, and Peter and Trevor start individually adding their own individual melodic stylings to the frame more and more as the dissonance starts to enter. And just as we're starting to get into a really cool exploratory zone, this thing gets rip corded right into Shamalama Ding Dong with one of the most egregious rip cords I can remember in a while. And I say this as a Shamalama Ding Dong lover. It's like unreal how like out of it you got ripped out from this wisteria that was really going somewhere, it felt like. And I'm so excited for the folks who had the sign and were up front, the locals who wanted Shama. Like, that's so awesome you got it. It's just like, oh, you massacred my boy
Yeah.
Wisteria.
And this happens to Wisteria all too often, so we're a little bit overly sensitive about it. But I will say, for even the fact that it did get ripcorded, I think that they accomplish a ton in the time that they do spend on this. I thought that it was very, very, I don't want to say similar in terms of the specifics to the Jively, but not entirely dissimilar either in terms of the mood they convey. I think that after Rick kind of slows things down, they get not quite dark, but at least spooky for sure. And Peter truly finds some haunting notes, and Rick kind of paints in spurts in between that. And by the time we get towards the end, I feel like it's really building into some terrific and now truly actually dark goose
Hmm.
brilliance at the end. But that's when it unfortunately gets ripcorded. But I love what they accomplished in the time before they ripcorded it. And, like you, I am a huge Shama fan as well. But, uh, you know, I get tired of hearing us say this, but 4 or 5 more minutes here, and this thing is sitting pretty in terms of year end lists.
And we had like a two show Wisteria run where it was like getting like 19-ish minutes, I feel like. And
Yeah,
that's better than we got in a year and
yeah,
change. So, uh, but yeah, it does quite a bit of exploring. Like it's like 15 minutes and 10 minutes of jam, and it's really really solid. So um, I am very very happy for those folks who got Shama. It's really great. Like it's
yeah,
treating the locals to the song that they want the most. That's what it's all about. But I just wish it like came before Wisteria or something like somehow.
yeah.
Ugh.
Well, I still think about that Goose Miss Wisteria, and that one hurt at the time as well. But this one was so much more accomplished than that one was that you're just like, oh, that was right on the edge. But Anyways, it was still really good. I felt like for the time it was, and I feel like I'm gonna probably like overrank it just because I don't want it to get shortchanged because what they accomplished in its time was really really interesting to me. But we move on to set two, Big Modern.
Nothing to
What did
talk
you have?
about.
Yeah, it's a 3 song second set. This is like pretty much ideal scenario. I think feel like for both of us. What did you think about the Big Modern here?
The Big Modern is probably my lowest highlight of the 3 songs, shockingly, which is saying a lot about this set because I love Big Modern. Probably my favorite song. Um,
Yep.
and this kept a lot of the familiar stylings of Big Moderns we saw a lot in 2025, but like other jams we've discussed, added a few moments of flair to it. There's an early section that gets relatively bluesy and then rolls back into a more dancing section that kind of mixes the Big Modern style with what you might expect to hear in like the outro of a Pancakes or something. It was kind of cool. And um and then once it gets out of that section, it kind of is the ramp to the outro dancey Big Modern that we come to know and love. But as we always say, there's no such thing as a bad Big Modern. Like that vibe is such a good vibe and is welcome anywhere in a set. So there's nothing really to knock on it. It's just like I got a lot more notes on other stuff to talk about.
For sure. And I think part of the reason this one is not as distinguished maybe as other big moderns is it kind of does a lot of similar things. It's fun and funky initially. You do get that little bit of more airy but still busy space in the middle where Peter kind of shifts to like wispy sounding synths and gentler keys, and you get some really melodic playing from Trevor there. But when Peter shifts back to piano, they move back into up tempo just like the early part of the jam, and it quickly moves into some like uplifting bliss. It does have a really terrific peak on it, but I just feel like it's a fairly straightforward jam, and maybe that's why it'll, get glanced over by some people, but still very, very solid. And as you said, and I'll repeat it till my dying breath, there are no bad big moderns.
Nah, I can't wait for the day we get to say bad modern. Not really. I hope it never happens.
I don't think it will, but I thought this So Ready was really, really cool. What did you think about this one?
So cool. The exploration of different directions we can go with the goons is just really fun to see, and it continues with So Ready kind of being the main flagpole for that lately. And we've seen the last few versions of So Ready kind of seamlessly meld the outro of the satellite jam into like the high energy goons. But this version kind of takes that hybrid approach that they were doing on the outro. It just kind of does it right from the jump. And it makes for a really cool ride all the way through. There's a point early in the final build where the jam sounds like it could be the long lost relative of the Slow Ready jam with the arpeggiator going. And then it becomes another explosive kind of shift into like Final Fantasy boss triumph banger mode that we talked about last time, all the way to the finish. But it felt a lot less goonsy, like in terms of like the hardcore club sound than the last few versions, and more true to the OG sound, which was really, really kind of cool blend overall all the way through.
Yeah, I totally agree. I agree. I almost put this as like Goons adjacent vibes because it was a lot less focus on the loops and the electronic sounds. Really great sound from Peter on keys. Very dancey, but I felt like it had more international flavor. Almost sounds like kind of Eastern European, like the Creatures jam can sometimes get to, which I felt like was very appropriate for the location. It's definitely super dancey, like a lot of the Goons versions are, but like this one is definitely, at least to me, like more piano focused, more Russian sounding, and it just had that like that sound where you're almost like picture people like in a line kicking their legs out, like and yelling "Hey" every 10 seconds. So it was just a lot of fun, and more importantly, it was just very unique. Like I don't know that So Ready will venture to this territory again.
No, there it was really just the one section where like the arpeggios are going and the drum tracks kind of going the whole way, which is why it's like diet goons.
Yes.
I should have probably said
Yep.
that term. But yeah, it definitely is way more in that traditional satellite vein than the other two versions we've seen since Gonzo.
Either way, really excited with the diversity we're getting from So Ready. I don't know that either one of us or anyone in the Goose community could have seen this coming before this year started. It's just kind of one of the more insane developments of being a Goose fan in 2026.
Do we need to delete the L and the W from our logo and switch it up depending on which song's having a better run?
We'll have 2 logos for the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Slow Ready's been having a pretty good run too. It's just not as
Yeah,
hype as
no, it
these Slow
has.
Readies lately. Oof.
This just came out of left field, but what did not come out of left field, at least to me, is closing the last proper full Goose show with the Madhavan to end things out. So, did you have any notes on this?
I have a lot of notes. I'll keep it short because I know you want to geek out and I don't want to steal your
Yeah,
thunder. But
not a
this
geek out,
mod
man.
is haunted carnival vibes from the rip. It lures you into a daze. The band's kind of slowly descending down the rabbit hole of a twisted wonderland. And then once you kind of hit the bottom, the energy starts to ratchet up and you think we're going metal vibes and it pivots more into like a peppy building, blissy rocking section, giving you like the Westville All I Need kind of vibes for a minute and then kind of soars to a huge rocking finish. But great way to end the Europe run of headlining shows and really fun way to end a second set that's a three-songer like this. Really, 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 really strong version of mod that grows on me with every listen. Like definitely a standout jam of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's 60 minutes of 3 standout versions of songs, so, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I think that what sometimes I feel like it's lost in the shuffle with these Madhavans over the last year is they're all kind of doing that demented thing early on, and I feel like if maybe you're not really into Dark Goose or it's not really your jam. You may lose out on some of the nuances, but what's really cool to me is all of these dark sections early on are all very, very different flavors of darkness. And this continues that. I mean, it is dark and demented pretty, much right away, but it's so different than like the Alpharetta or the Milwaukee or Grand Rapids. It just does its own thing. I really love Trevor's lines on this. They almost make you feel dizzy, like the ground is like literally slipping out from under you. Peter and Rick are like weaving discordance together like only they can. And they slow it down to this more deliberate, almost like marching pace, but the sound is still very dense. And then they sort of just let that self destruct. And then they get into this very tight and very up tempo groove that Rick introduces some major key runs and they shift into driving, positively aggressive bliss. And it's just ridiculous peak all the way to the finish. And I just think this jam gives you a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's quite a ride, and I love the distinction you made about the intro, especially because that is the most accurate thing I've ever heard you say in my life, buddy. It is a unique ramp. Like, it's not the whole Lost in Space vibes for a while. It's not like the churning, sludgy, dark. It's not like the kinda like Rick does this kinda rocky or metal intro. This is its own flavor, and it is kinda that spinning, uneasy you're riding a carousel or whatever it's called, the thing with the horses that you ride on at the carnival, and you're
Yep.
getting dizzy like it going
Yeah.
into a dark carnival. So very, very cool. And the way it rocks on the outro is unreal.
Yeah, I can't think of a better exclamation point to the tour proper. Anything else on Berlin before we move to the last show of Europe?
No, let's move on to Viby, even though I want to call it Viby. I believe I looked it up and it's Viby, if Google's correct.
Ah, screw that. We're calling it Vibe. So, Goose, Northside Festival, Vibe, Denmark.
Viby.
Denmark's got it. Denmark's got to be Vibe. So, we get a pretty short set here, but it was a festival set. So, Animal, Born, Hunger Site, Can't Get You Out of My Head, the Kylie cover, and Give It Time. Obviously, this is not on Nugs. We haven't listened to this, but any thoughts on the set list game here for the festival show?
No, it looks like a pretty strong showing for the hour ish that they got there. I thought it was interesting they brought back Kylie. It's good call. It's a great festival tune, and um, they played some of their bigger songs, like as to be expected. Hunger Site, Give It Time, always great crowd responses. Animal is a great call. Born is kind of the only kind of surprise, although it's a still very popular song. It seems like the kind of festival where they might have wanted energy the whole way through, and I kind of like that they threw in a cool down there just to keep it different.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. Playing Kylie abroad just makes sense. The European audience is going to be very familiar with that tune, so play an upbeat cover that everyone's going to be familiar with. I think that's great. Um, but Born, I think I agree with you, was kind of the surprise. I think Give It Time has enough slow ballad qualities that that could have worked for that, and they didn't need to throw another slow song in there. So I would have loved to see like a Thatch or something there, just to keep the energy up even higher because they're only playing so many songs. But it's a really good set. If you're a fan of Goose that's kind of just getting started and maybe this is going to be the only time you get to see them, at least until the next time they come to Europe, I think that this is a really good festival set that kind of introduces you to all the best of what they do.
Well, it just depends on if you can see them over all the rude Americans who are like pushing people off the rail or whatever. But anyway,
Yeah,
um,
that's insane. And
insane.
we could do a whole podcast on how gross that behavior is.
This seemed like the show that had like the least amount of people traveling abroad for it. It seemed like it was actually just mostly locals. So hopefully the ones who were really excited about Goose got to get up close and personal if they wanted to and enjoyed it. Some great tunes.
Yeah. I mean, if that was my first time seeing Goose, I'd be very happy with the spread of songs I got covered there for the amount of time that they got to play. So, really, really well done. And, we say this, probably more than we say anything, but Goose rarely, if ever, misses the assignment.
No, I mean Kylie slaps. I'm still chasing that one. So jealous of all you
Yeah,
and
we
Viby.
both
Viby.
are. Yeah. It's going to line up really well for MSG for us potentially, buddy. So, keep the fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, that does it for Europe. Any other thoughts before we move on?
No, no other thoughts on Europe tour. Awesome, awesome run of shows. Blows the 2023 run out of the water. Like it blew it
Yes.
out of the water after just London, let alone all these
Yep.
tremendous jams we got. So awesome to see. I hope that the locals really enjoy themselves. If you are a local, give us a shout out. Like I just want to kind of get an idea of how many locals wound up at the shows. And if you listen to the pod, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's noteworthy that I think maybe just due to the fact that they weren't as under as many time constraints, I think spring may have been just a hair better for me, but it is kind of telling that my two favorite jams of the year came from Europe. So it just kind of speaks to the quality of stuff that was happening over there and how much better, to your point, it was than the 2023 run. Like if you were seeing Goose in Europe, I'm really happy for the locals over there that did get to make shows because, this is Goose at their best, and this is how you want to see them, at least when they're under a 3 hour time constraint.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and by no means were they like bad sets in 2023. It was just less about the exploratory jams and more about like let's give these folks all the songs that they have not gotten to hear yet.
Yeah. Goose Part 2 Electric Boogaloo was much better. So, uh, very happy about that. We're really excited. Goose Tour is about to rev up in America next week. So we've got shows coming up. We've got a lot of shows to recap. We've also got Big Modern dropping this week, which we're going to give you our thoughts on that here in our next episode, which really excited to do that. There's a bunch of listening parties tomorrow. If you're going out to any of those, please send us a photo or tag us or anything like that. That'd be awesome. We're really excited about the album release and seeing y'all at MSG next week.
Oh my god, I can't wait for MSG. Yeah, like Mike said, if you're listening, it's tomorrow as we record today. If you're listening, the day the episode drops
Yeah.
is most of the listening parties. So yeah, if you're going, give us a shout. We'd love to see your pictures and hopefully have a great time. But we'll see you on the road this summer, particularly at MSG.
Yeah, we're both going to be there. Cannot wait to meet so many of y'all and see so many old friends again next weekend. It's going to be an absolute blast in the best city in the world. And with that in mind, go Knicks, fuck Wemby. Thank y'all so much for listening.
Thanks, guys. I don't even like the Knicks, but go Knicks. Fuck the Spurs.
See ya.